On July 15, 2025, America woke to a shocking headline: global gridlock, international ports refuse US-bound cargo. At the port of Long Beach, the usual clamor of commerce was replaced by silence. Cranes frozen, ships anchored, workers idle. The world had closed its doors to America, and the nation's economic lifeline was suddenly severed. Orders to halt US-bound cargo came not from unions, but from boardrooms and government offices across the globe. Shanghai, Rotterdam, and Singapore all stopped loading US cargo, citing trade instability. The global supply chain had been weaponized, and America was abruptly isolated. For millions, the day began like any other. Until the news spread, confusion turned to anxiety, and the reality of economic paralysis set in. The silent ports became a stark symbol. America was cut off from the world. The crisis was rooted in Washington's spring 2025 decision to impose a sweeping 60% tariff on Chinese imports. Intended to punish Beijing and boost US manufacturing, the move underestimated global interdependence. China responded not with tariffs, but with diplomacy, rallying Germany, South Korea, Vietnam, and Brazil to frame the US as a threat to global trade. Quietly, a coalition formed, planning a coordinated refusal to load US-bound cargo. It wasn't a blockade by warships, but a synchronized action by the world's largest ports and shipping companies. They cited logistical risks and instability, giving the move a veneer of legitimacy. On July 14th, port authorities from Shanghai to Hamburg halted US cargo. The just-in-time delivery system that fueled American life was about to be starved of oxygen. The architects of the tariffs had hoped to isolate a rival. Instead, they isolated America. The spark of tariffs had ignited a global firestorm. The world's supply chain had turned against the US overnight. The Port of Los Angeles, America's busiest, became ground zero for the crisis. Trucks jammed the gates, drivers' appointments canceled, containers stranded offshore. Maria Flores, a logistics manager, described the scene. "My screen was a sea of red flags, canceled, delayed, on hold. We were powerless." Businesses faced shutdowns as millions in inventory sat hostage on the water. Economists estimated over $1 billion lost for every day the port was paralyzed. For longshoremen like Frank Miller, the crisis was personal. No ships, no work, no paycheck. This isn't politics, it's our lives. The ripple spread. Warehouses fell silent. Trucking companies furloughed drivers. The logistics ecosystem ground to a halt. The port's paralysis sent shockwaves through Southern California and beyond. The Port of Los Angeles wasn't just a location, it was the heart of a complex economic body. On that day, the heart stopped beating. The chaos was a terrifying preview of what was to come nationwide. The crisis was no longer abstract, it was immediate, visible, and devastating. America's economic engine had seized. The paralysis spread quickly. Seattle, Oakland, and other West Coast ports fell silent. Tech giants and farmers alike were hit. Assembly lines stalled. Exports rotted in containers. By day 3, the crisis reached the East and Gulf Coasts. New York, Savannah, Houston all saw operations grind down. Ships from Europe were rerouted or halted. Container yards emptied. The blockade choked both imports and exports, strangling the economy from both ends. Every major artery of American commerce was clogged. The nation faced a full-blown economic emergency. China's blockade was digital, not military. Ports like Shanghai simply stopped issuing clearances for US-bound cargo. Shipping agents found their requests denied, citing system-wide adjustments. The effect was immediate. Factories halted, warehouses overflowed, and global supply chains snapped. Major shipping lines rerouted vessels away from US trade lanes, redeploying them to more stable routes. Even if a US company found a willing supplier, there were no ships to carry the goods. America was erased from the global shipping map. The blockade exploited America's just-in-time model: minimal inventory, maximum vulnerability. By cutting off the flow for weeks, China and its partners triggered shortages and economic pain without firing a shot. The Great Wall of Shipping revealed a new kind of power control over the world's logistical arteries. America's dependence had become its greatest weakness. Within a week, the crisis hit Main Street. Empty shelves, soaring prices, and out-of-stock signs everywhere. Supermarkets ran low on imported staples. Big box retailers saw entire sections empty. Prices for remaining goods doubled, hitting low and middle-income families hardest. Layoffs rippled outward. Trucking, warehousing, auto plants, construction, and small businesses all suffered. A local boutique's business model evaporated overnight. A Michigan auto plant furloughed thousands. The blockade was no longer just news. It was a pink slip, a closed sign, a family's fear. Rising prices and disappearing jobs frayed the social fabric. News was filled with stories of families struggling and businesses failing. The crisis exposed the hidden vulnerabilities of the American economy. The ripple effect was both economic and social, touching every community. The true story of the crisis is told by those who lived it. Sarah Jenkins, an Ohio factory worker, lost her job when circuit boards from China stopped arriving. "How am I going to pay my rent, feed my son?" Raj Patel, who ran a motel for truckers near Oakland, saw his business collapse overnight. "Drivers stopped coming. My revenue dropped 90%. I had to let go of my staff." Mark Thompson, an Illinois soybean farmer, watched his harvest rot. "We sell half our crop to China. Now, I have silos full of beans I can't sell. If this doesn't end, I could lose my farm." Even economists felt the weight. Dr. Emily Vance said, "We can model GDP loss, but not despair." Decoupling wasn't surgical. It was a brutal amputation. The crisis wasn't just numbers. It was lost dignity, fear, and heartbreak. Small businesses, farmers, and workers bore the brunt of policies made far away. The human cost was catastrophic, felt by those the policy was meant to protect. The crisis reached deep into every community, urban and rural. It shattered the illusion that America could stand alone. The pain was real, immediate, and widespread. The voices of those affected became the true record of the blockade. The lesson: economic policy is never just about numbers, it's about people. As the blockade dragged on, the national impact was staggering. Over $20 billion lost per week, stock markets in freefall. The pain was felt far from Wall Street. Unemployment soared, prices spiked, protests erupted nationwide. The crisis deepened political divisions, eroded any sense of shared national purpose. America's self-image as the world's indispensable economic center was shattered. The psychological blow was profound. Vulnerability replaced confidence. The blockade revealed how fragile modern life had become, forcing a national reckoning. America's strength lay not in isolation, but in its global connections. The lesson was clear: going it alone was a path to self-inflicted ruin. The crisis ended not with victory, but with a quiet retreat. Washington suspended tariffs, and ports reopened. The scars remained, and the lesson was undeniable. Global interdependence is reality. The supply chain isn't a chain, but a web. One tremor is felt everywhere. American jobs, profits, and daily life are woven into the global fabric. Interdependence is not weakness, but a feature of the modern world. The goal isn't self-sufficiency, but resilience and cooperation. The day global trade stopped proved there is no us versus them, only a collective we. In a connected world, we sink or swim together.